Cyber Threat Brief for July 7, 2026. Oracle E-Business Suite faces active exploitation via CVE 2026-46817, affecting 950 instances worldwide. Jade Puffer demonstrates the first fully autonomous LLM-driven ransomware attack. Beyond Trust patches critical auth bypass flaws in remote access products following a history of exploitation. Here's the full breakdown of today's top security stories. Daily Cybersecurity Brief. July 7, 2026. Next section, Critical Alerts. Oracle E-Business Suite Remote Code Execution, CVE 2026-46817. Oracle E-Business Suite is under active exploitation through CVE 2026-46817, a critical remote code execution flaw affecting approximately 950 internet-exposed instances globally. Successful exploitation allows attackers to gain control over enterprise resource planning systems without authentication. The vulnerability has EPSS, the exploit prediction scoring system, score of 0. 7, 48th percentile. Action, patch immediately. Checkpoint IPS provides protection via signature, Oracle E-Business Suite Authentication Bypass, CVE 2026-46817. Prioritize internet-facing EBS instances. Source, Checkpoint Research. Linux kernel KVM guest to host escape, CVE 2026-53359. A 16-year-old use-after-free vulnerability in Linux KVM hypervisor allows guest VMs to escape to the host on Intel and AMD x86 systems. Dubbed JanEscape, the flaw affects the shadow MMU code and has been present since Linux kernel 2.6.36, August 2010. A public proof-of-concept triggers host panic. The researcher claims a separate, unreleased exploit achieves full host code execution. Any environment hosting untrusted guests with nested virtualization enabled is vulnerable. An attacker who rents a cloud instance can panic the host and take down all tenant VMs on the same physical machine. EPSS score is 0. 2, 7th percentile. Action, apply Linux kernel patches, merge June 19, 2026, commit 81CCDA30B4E8. Disable nested virtualization on hosts running untrusted guests if not required. On RHEL systems where /dev/kvm is world writable, 666, treat this as a local privilege escalation vector to root. Sources, The Hacker News. Citrix NetScaler memory disclosure under active exploitation, CVE 2026-8451, Citrix patched CVE 2026-8451. A NetScaler ADC and NetScaler gateway memory disclosure vulnerability affecting SAML identity provider configurations. Active exploitation began less than 24 hours after disclosure, with attacks leaking session tokens from vulnerable appliances. EPSS score is 0. 5, 39th percentile. Action, patch NetScaler ADC and gateway instances immediately. Checkpoint IPS provides protection via signature, Citrix NetScaler out-of-bounds read, CVE 2026-8451. Review SAML IDP logs for unauthorized token access. Source, Checkpoint Research. Progress Kemp Load Master OS Command Injection, CVE 2026-8037. Progress addressed CVE 2026-8037. A critical OS command injection flaw in Kemp Load Master load balancers with CVSS, the common vulnerability scoring system, 9.6. Exploitation attempts started June 29 and allow unauthenticated remote code execution. EPSS score is 0. 296, 98th percentile. Action, patch Kemp Load Master instances immediately. Checkpoint IPS provides protection. Review logs for exploitation attempts starting June 29. Source, Checkpoint Research. Linux bad EPAL privilege escalation, CVE 2026-46242. Linux kernel maintainers patched CVE 2026-46242. A bad EPAL privilege escalation flaw affecting Linux servers, desktops, and Android devices. The race condition use after free vulnerability allows unprivileged local users to gain root access. A public exploit demonstrates reliable exploitation. EPSS score is 0. 1, 3rd percentile. Action, apply Linux kernel patches. Treat as high priority on multi-user Linux systems and Android devices where local attackers may have shell access. Source, Checkpoint Research. Langflow unauthenticated remote code execution, CVE 2025-3248. CVE 2025-3248. an unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability in Langflow, an open-source AI application builder, is confirmed exploited in the Jade Puffer autonomous ransomware campaign. The flaw is on the CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, KEV, Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog with due date 2025-05-26 and EPSS score of 1. 100th percentile. Action: patch Langflow deployments immediately. Remove internet exposure for Langflow instances if not required. This vulnerability was used as initial access in the first documented autonomous LLM-driven ransomware attack. Sources: Dark Reading Cyberscoop. Next section, Ransomware and Extortion. Jade Puffer, first fully autonomous LLM-driven ransomware SysTig, documented the first end-to-end ransomware operation executed autonomously by a large language model without human operator intervention. A threat actor, tracked as Jade Puffer, exploited CVE 2025-3248 in an internet-facing Langflow deployment, then pivoted to a production database server running MySQL and Alibaba Nacos. The AI agent enumerated database contents, exfiltrated selected data, deleted the database, and left an extortion note demanding payment. The attack involved over 600 distinct purposeful payloads executed in rapid succession. Jade Puffer demonstrated adaptive behavior, reattempting failed steps with refined parameters and fixing a failed login in 31 seconds. The payloads were self-narrating, containing natural language reasoning and detailed annotations typical of LLM-generated code. The AI agent accessed API, keys for OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepSeek, and Gemini during the operation. Evidence indicates a human still set up infrastructure, command and control server, staging server, and provisioned root credentials for the MySQL server from a prior compromise, but the operational execution was autonomous. Jade Puffer is financially motivated with no overlaps to established ransomware groups or nation-states. Action: this represents a paradigm shift where the skill floor for ransomware operations drops to the cost of running an AI agent. Review Langflow deployments for CVE 2025-3248 exposure. Monitor for autonomous attack patterns, including rapid payload iteration and self-correcting behavior. Sources: Dark Reading Cyberscoop. Ransomware incidents this week. Riverbank and Trust, a U.S. financial institution, experienced a ransomware incident after an unauthorized actor accessed the network of parent company River Financial Corporation on June 16. Ransomware was found on portions of the server environment. The bank is assessing whether personal data was accessed or exfiltrated. Indra Group, a Spanish defense and aerospace contractor and NATO Cyber Coalition member, confirmed a ransomware attack affecting one subsidiary. The Gentleman ransomware gang threatened to leak allegedly stolen data. Indra stated the incident was contained and service continuity was maintained. Checkpoint, Threat Emulation, and Harmony Endpoint provide protection. Nidec, a Japanese electric motor and industrial manufacturer, disclosed a ransomware attack affecting its Taiwanese subsidiary Nidec Chonchown Technology. Blackfield Group claimed responsibility and alleged theft of more than 2 terabytes of corporate data including employee, financial, procurement, manufacturing, legal, and IT records. Source: Checkpoint Research. Aflac Japan Data Breach, U.S. insurance firm, Aflac disclosed a data breach affecting its Japan operations. Attackers accessed the policyholder portal between June 15 and June 25, exposing personal and financial data of nearly 4.4 million customers, including policyholder information and premium payment account details. Source: Checkpoint Research. Next section, Business and Infrastructure Threats. Beyond Trust Remote Support and PRA Critical Auth Bypass Flaws. CVE 2026-40138. CVE 2026-40139. Beyond Trust released updates addressing 2 critical authentication bypass vulnerabilities in remote support (RS) and privileged remote access (PRA) products. CVE 2026-40138. CVSS 9.2 affects both RS and PRA, stemming from improper validation of authentication data that allows network-positioned attackers to bypass access controls and gain unauthorized access, including elevated privileges. CVSS 9.2 affects RS only, with improper processing of authentication requests allowing unauthenticated remote attackers to bypass access controls. Both require specific authentication configurations to be exploited. Beyond Trust identified the flaws internally using AI models, including Anthropic Claude Opus 4. 8. Although active exploitation is mentioned, Beyond Trust products have a history of exploitation. CIS a KEV do 2024-1227, EPSS 0.880, and CIS a KEV ransomware link due 2026-0216. EPSS 0.861 were both exploited in the wild to deploy web shells and backdoors, and 3 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: update remote support to version 25.3.3 or higher, and privileged remote access to version 25.3.3 or higher immediately. Review authentication configurations for reverse proxy setups. Given the exploitation history of Beyond Trust products, treat this as a critical patch. Source: The Hacker News. Guidea Docker Authentication Bypass, under probing, CVE 2026-20896, threat actors are probing CVE 2026-20896, CVSS 9.8, a critical authentication bypass in Guidea Docker images. The flaw stems from Guidea trusting the xWebAuth user header from any source IP address. The official Docker image hardcodes reverse proxy trusted proxies equals * in the app. In iTemplate, trusting every source IP instead of the documented safe value of 127.0.0.0/8, 1/128. When reverse proxy authentication is enabled, any process that can reach the Guidea container's HTTP port directly can impersonate any user by sending an xWebAuth user header. Admin accounts are obvious targets. Sysdig detected the first exploitation attempt 13 days after public disclosure, originating from Proton VPN IP 159.26.98.241. Approximately 6,200 internet-facing Guidea instances exist. Action: update Guidea Docker images to version 1.26.3 or higher, released late June 2026. The wildcard has been removed and reverse proxy authentication is now opt-in. Remove internet exposure for Guidea if not required. Source: The Hacker News. NetNut/Poper residential proxy botnet disrupted Google, in collaboration with the FBI, Lumen, and partners, took action against the NetNut residential proxy network, also known as POPA. The network consists of at least 2 million devices globally, populated by distributing SDKs for smart TVs and streaming boxes. NetNut's botnet plugin components were identified in large-scale botnets, including Badbox 2.0. The devices are pre-installed with malware before purchase, or users unknowingly download applications containing hidden proxy code. Google disabled Google accounts and services used for C2, updated Google Play Protect, and disabled applications incorporating NetNut SDKs. Attackers leverage these devices to route traffic and mask malicious activity. Action: audit smart TVs, streaming boxes, and EOT devices for unexpected network traffic patterns. Review firewall logs for residential proxy abuse indicators. Consider network segmentation for EOT devices. Source: The Hacker News. Navigate 360 anonymous tip system breached 3 months without notification on March 18, 2026. A hacktivist disclosed 8.3 million tips from systems operated by Navigate 360, P3 Campus, P3 Global Intel, Serving Crime Stoppers, Safe2Say PA, Safe2Tell, and Sandy Hook Promise. The tips were advertised as anonymous, but were often not. Navigate 360, Safe2Say PA, Safe2Tell, and Sandy Hook Promise have failed to notify affected individuals 3 months after disclosure. The breach exposes highly sensitive information about students and youth, including suicide threats, bullying, drugs on campus, sexual abuse, violence, and self-harm reports. On April 24, Senators Hassan and Banks requested specific answers from Navigate 360 with a May 8 deadline, but no responses have been made public. Doug Levin of K-12 Security Information E-Exchange calls it the single largest breach of highly sensitive information about students the U.S. has ever experienced, and notes there are no third-party security audits, federal investigations, or state attorney general actions disclosed. Action: if your organization uses Navigate 360 tip systems, P3 Campus, Safe2Say PA, Safe2Tell, Sandy Hook Promise, demand immediate disclosure and security audits. Consider alternative anonymous reporting platforms with verified security controls. This breach highlights systemic failure in protecting sensitive student data. Source: Data Breaches. Net. China Nexus threat actors target universities via Roundcube exploits. A suspected China line threat cluster, tracked as UNK Mass Traction, is exploiting Roundcube webmail software at physics and engineering departments of U.S. and Canadian universities. The campaign targets administrators and professors in departments with national security ties or studying astrophysics and particle physics. Attackers exploit CVE 2024-42009, CVSS 9.3, CIS a KEV do 2025-0630, EPSS 0.829, and CVSS 9.9, CIS a KEV do 2026-0313. EPSS 0.895. The cross-site scripting exploit executes when recipients open emails in Roundcube, delivering the IceCube payload which steals credentials, 2FA tokens, and cookies. IceCube then leverages the session's CSRF token to exploit for RCE, deploying either vShell or the Square Shell web shell. The campaign uses both compromised senders and domains vulnerable to spoofing due to lax DMARC policies. Reconnaissance indicates deliberate targeting of departments running vulnerable Roundcube versions. Infrastructure analysis shows use of Snowlight ELF loader and vShell tools linked to UNC 5174, suggesting shared tooling among China Nexus clusters, and 3 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: patch Roundcube immediately to address CVE 2024-42009 and CVE 2025-49113, both CIS a KEV. Review mail server logs for XSS exploit attempts and unauthorized access to plugins/new mail notifier/mail preview. PHP. Harden DMARC policies to prevent domain spoofing. Universities with physics, engineering, or national security research should prioritize this threat. Source: The Hacker News. China Nexus hackers target Indian taxpayers with DCRAT. A suspected China Nexus threat cluster is targeting Indian taxpayers, tax professionals, and corporate finance teams with spear-phishing emails impersonating the Income Tax Department of India. Tracked as Operation Dragon Return by Secrite Labs, the campaign was first observed May 18, 2026, coinciding with annual tax filing season. PDF attachments contain malicious links, GovTop, 1/IncomeX, leading to fake tax filing utilities that sideload malicious DLLs and deploy DCRAT. The malware establishes persistence via Windows Service mixed as VC, disables AMSI scanning, and exfiltrates screenshots and data. Infrastructure analysis reveals China Net IP addresses and a Chinese-language web panel on the DCRAT-C2 server, 223.26.63.40. The campaign shows overlaps with Silver Fox, a Chinese cybercrime group linked to Valley RAT tax-themed phishing. The precision of Lure documents, use of real legal citations, bilingual content, and active payload rotation indicate a deliberate, resourced operation focused on the Indian taxpayer ecosystem for financial gain or sensitive data theft. Action: alert users to tax-themed phishing during filing season. Block indicators: GovTop, 1/IncomeX, 204.194.48.250, KKXQBH, top 223.26.63.40. Hunt for persistence via mixed SVC service and NVDA helper remote. DLL sideloading. Source: The Hacker News. North Korean pollen rider supply chain campaign targets developers. North Korean hackers are conducting a broad supply chain campaign dubbed Pollen Rider, targeting open-source developers across NPM, Packagist, Go modules, and Chrome extensions. Active since December 2025, the campaign has produced 162 malicious release artifacts across 108 unique packages. Attackers compromise maintainer accounts to inject JavaScript loaders into legitimate repositories, using Git history rewriting to make changes appear older. Loaders connect to blockchain and public RPC infrastructure to retrieve encrypted payloads, delivering DEV hash popper RAT and Omni Stealer information stealer. The campaign is associated with Contagious Interview Operation, also seen in Deceptive Development, Operation Dream Job, and Click Fake Interview. Recent expansion to Packagist targeted the 7-span namespace, with malicious loaders hidden in configuration files that survived cleanup. Socket warns that teams installing affected packages should treat the environment as compromised, as Pollen Rider targets developer environments and may expose package registry, source code, cloud, and CI/CD credentials. Action: audit all NPM, Packagist, Go, and Chrome extension dependencies. Review recent package updates for suspicious maintainer account activity or Git history rewrites. Remediate from clean machines, not potentially infected hosts. Rotate package registry, source code, cloud, and CI/CD credentials. Source: Security Week. Veil Hash Drop Framework delivers pure log stealer via Blogspot SecureNix uncovered Veil Hash Drop, a sophisticated multi-stage malware delivery framework using compromised websites and Blogspot-hosted payloads to deploy pure log stealer. The infection chain begins with JavaScript files posing as documents, launching PowerShell code that retrieves additional payloads from attacker-controlled Blogspot pages. The second stage loader contains XOR-encoded NET assemblies that are decrypted at runtime. The framework uses several fallback mechanisms and abuses trusted Microsoft signed binaries for code execution and defense evasion. Pure log stealer is a NET-based infostealer targeting credentials, cookies, autofill data, session tokens, browsing histories, and cryptocurrency wallets from Chrome, Edge, Firefox, Brave, Opera, and Chromium-based browsers. It also harvests data from messaging apps, email clients, remote access software, FTP clients, cloud storage, developer tools, and password managers. In enterprise environments, stolen credentials can be leveraged for ransomware deployment, data theft, business email compromise, or long-term espionage. Action: block Blogspot-hosted payloads at the web proxy where feasible. Hunt for JavaScript masquerading as documents, JS files with document icons, monitor for PowerShell execution from user directories and XOR code patterns. Review EDR logs for reflective, NET loading, and fileless execution. Rotate credentials and session tokens on any workstation with pure log indicators. Source: Security Week. ChocoPO-CRAT targets vulnerability researchers via fake GitHub PO-CS security researchers searching for Python-based proof-of-concept repositories on GitHub claiming to exploit new CVEs are being tricked into executing ChocoPO-CRAT. The proof-of-concept code appears clean but pulls a malicious dependency named Skydext containing the actual malware. ChocoPO-C is a full-featured Trojan harvesting passwords, cookies, autofill data, and history from Chrome, Brave, Edge, and Firefox. It also captures text files, notes, local databases, shell history, network settings, running processes, and supports arbitrary shell command or Python code execution. Action: audit Python PO-C repositories for unexpected dependencies before execution. Run PO-CS in isolated sandboxes only. Review researcher workstations for ChocoPO-C indicators including the Skydext package. Source: The Hacker News. Next section, IOCs and Detection. UAT 7810, ORB Network Infrastructure Cisco Talos is tracking UAT 7810, a China Nexus APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, actor maintaining Lapdog's operational relay box, ORB networks. UAT 7810 continues developing custom malware including Shortleash, with a newer version Longleash now in development. 2 new malware families have been discovered. Dogleash, C-based backdoor executing arbitrary shellcode on compromised Linux devices, and Jarleash, Java-based backdoor for file management, FTP, SFTP, and Netcat. UAT 7810 exploits NDA vulnerabilities in unpatched Ruckus wireless routers and was observed exploiting ASUS AI cloud routers via CVE 2025-2492, EPSS 0.10. C2 infrastructure. Block these IPs. 194.233.92.26, 217.15.160.247, 217.15.164.147, 95.182.100.231, Hong Kong, TLS fingerprint ports 99, a hash indicator. See show notes for details. Subject DN, C equals exploit, SD equals exploit, L equals exploit, O equals exploit, OU equals exploit, CN equals exploit. Action: block the listed IPs at perimeter firewalls. Hunt for connections to port 99 TLS servers with the specified certificate fingerprint. Patch Ruckus wireless routers and ASUS AI cloud devices. Review logs for Dogleash/Jarleash indicators. Source: Talos blog. Next section, Windows/Active Directory security. Cavern Manticore. Iran-linked modular C2 framework targets Israel Checkpoint Research is tracking Cavern Manticore, an Iran Nexus APT group linked to Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security. Moaz, targeting Israeli organizations with focus on IT providers and government sectors. The threat actor shares tactical overlaps with Muddy Water and Lyceum oil rig subgroup. Cavern Manticore deploys a modular, NET-based C2 framework called Cavern using 3 different compilation formats: NET framework, IL only, mixed mode C++/CLI, IL plus native, and net native AOT native only. The compilation format itself acts as the anti-analysis layer, forcing reverse engineers into multiple toolsets. The attack chain begins with abuse of SysAid's software update feature to deploy a WinDireStat DLL, dynamic link library, sideloading package. The Trojanized UX theme. DLL contains the Cavern agent, which loads a native communication module, NHDComp. DLL, to contact C2 server hospital installation. COM and fetch post-exploitation modules. 5 modules provide file operations, MHM. DLL, SQL database enumeration, DB. DLL, Active Directory reconnaissance ODE. DLL, network reconnaissance and SMB, small and medium business, brute force N10. DLL, and SOCKS 5 proxy/WebSocket tunneling, NSWS. DLL. Cavern Manticore attacks involve moving from an initial compromised IT provider to a second hot provider before reaching the intended target, weaponizing trusted relationships in the software supply chain. A threat actor abuses remote monitoring and management, RMM, remote monitoring and management, solutions deployed in targeted organizations. Action: hunt for SysAid software update abuse and win Direstat DLL sideloading, UXtheme, DLL, block C2 domain hospital installation. Review RMM solution access logs for unauthorized activity. Monitor for LDAP brute force attempts, SQL database enumeration, and SMB share scanning. Israeli IT providers and government organizations should prioritize this threat. Sources: The Hacker News Checkpoint Research. Next section, General Security News. Browser-native ransomware technique, using Chrome File System Access API Checkpoint Research, demonstrated a browser-native ransomware technique generated by a large language model that abuses Chrome's File System Access API. A fake image enhancement page convinces users to grant folder access, then reads, exfiltrates, and encrypts photos inside the browser on Android and Windows. This technique works without installing any software and operates entirely within the browser sandbox. Action: user education on granting folder access to web pages. Consider browser policies restricting File System Access API for managed devices. Source: Checkpoint Research. AI coding agents fail shell command injection tests. Researchers examined shell command injection weaknesses in open-source AI coding agents and found that 10 out of 11 popular tools failed to block obfuscated destructive commands. Simple rewrites bypassed filters and enabled destructive actions, including file deletion. Only the continue agent properly parsed commands. Action: do not trust AI coding agents to sanitize shell commands. Review all AI-generated shell commands before execution. Implement strict approval workflows for AI-generated code that interacts with the operating system. Source: Checkpoint Research. LLM phantom squatting, exploited for phishing. Researchers warn that attackers are exploiting LLM hallucinated domains by registering AI-generated domains to hijack traffic and deliver phishing. Researchers recorded 250,000 hallucinated domains and subsequent registrations, including an AI-built phishing kit called Montana Empire, using a postal service domain for credential theft. Action: do not trust domains suggested by LLMs without verification. Implement additional verification for domain recommendations from AI tools. Block known phishing infrastructure using Montana Empire indicators. Source: Checkpoint Research. WhatsApp usernames raise impersonation. Concerns: WhatsApp officially announced global reservation of usernames to protect user privacy. The optional feature allows users to connect through usernames instead of phone numbers and will be generally available later this year. The rollout has drawn scrutiny in India over concerns about impersonation of public authorities, financial institutions, government departments, and prominent figures. While Meta reserves usernames for public figures, government entities, and variations, it is unclear how the company decides which lookalike usernames get reserved. Action: educate users on verifying WhatsApp identities through additional channels before trusting usernames. Monitor for impersonation attempts of your organization's officials. Source: The Hacker News. 19-year-old scattered spider suspect extradited to U.S. Peter Stokes, 19, dual U.S./Estonian citizenship, was extradited from Finland to the U.S. to face criminal charges for involvement in scattered spider hacking operations. Source: The Hacker News. Tender router hidden admin backdoor. CVE 2026-11405. CERT/CC warned that several Tenda firmware versions contain an undocumented authentication backdoor, enabling administrative access to web management interfaces without valid credentials. The backdoor in the /bin/httpd login function bypasses MD5-based password verification by calling getValue, sys, /arsadmin, password, and performing plaintext comparison. The associated /arsadmin username is not validated, so any username succeeds when paired with the backdoor password. Vulnerability remains unpatched and affects multiple firmware versions, including USFH 1200-1v1, 0BRV1, 2.0.14, 408 NTD, USW15EV1, 0BRV15, 11.0.5, 1068, 1567, 841 NTDE, USAC 10v1, 0REV15, 3, 6, 46 multi-TDE01, USAC 5v1, 0 RTLV multi-TDE 01, USAC 6v2, 0 RTLV multi-T, and 2 additional IP addresses in the show notes. Action: disable remote management on affected Tenda devices. Change default LAN IP address to prevent opportunistic discovery by automated scanners. Replace devices if vendor does not issue patches. Source: the hacker news. Alberta Centurion Project sued over alleged data breach. A retired lawyer filed a class action lawsuit against Alberta, its chief electoral officer, and two organizations supporting secession for alleged data breach, affecting 2.9 million residents. The lawsuit alleges the Centurion Project unlawfully obtained and distributed information from Alberta's list of electors. The suit targets not only organizations accused of accessing and distributing sensitive information, but also the provincial government and elections, Alberta's chief electoral officer, for failing to implement safeguards, auditing requirements, and enforcement procedures. Domestic violence victims, healthcare professionals, and elected officials are noted as especially vulnerable. Source: Data Breaches. Net. Next section, Patch Priority. Oracle eBusiness Suite. CVE 2026-46817 critical RCE under active exploitation, 950 instances affected globally. Linux KVM. CVE 2026-53359 guest to host, escape affecting all x86 virtualization hosts with nested virt enabled. OnTrust remote support/PRA. CVE 2026-40138, CVE 2026-40139 critical auth bypass, history of exploitation in this product line. Citrix NetScaler. CVE 2026-8451 memory disclosure, active exploitation within 24 hours of disclosure. Progress Kemp Loadmaster. CVE 2026-8037 OS command injection CVSS 9.6, exploitation started June 29. Next section, Vulnerability Disclosures. Linux kernel CVE 2026-53359, Janescape. 16-year-old KVM hypervisor use after free enabling guest to host escape on Intel and AMD x86. Public POC triggers host panic. Withheld exploit achieves full host code execution. EPSS 0.2, 7th percentile. Fixed June 19, 2026. CVE 2026-46242, Bad Apple. Race condition use after free privilege escalation allowing unprivileged local users to gain root on Linux servers, desktops, and Android. Public exploit available. EPSS 0.1, 3rd percentile. CVE 2026-43284, CVE 2026-43500, Dirty Frag. Page cache write vulnerability chain delivering deterministic root on most major distributions, extending dirty pipe and copy fail bug class. Disclosed May 2026. EPSS 0.932 and 0.928, both 100th percentile. CVE 2026-46316, ITscape. First publicly demonstrated guest-to-host escape on KVM/ARM64 exploiting race condition in virtual interrupt controller. Disclosed June 2026. EPSS 0.2, 8th percentile. Sources: The Hacker News Checkpoint Research. Roundcube CVS CVE 2024-42009, CVSS 9.3, XSS flaw requiring only email to be opened in Roundcube client. CIS a KEV do 2025-0630. EPSS 0.829, 100th percentile. Exploited by UNK mass traction against universities. CVE 2025-49113, CVSS 9.9, post-authenticated RCE in Roundcube. CIS a KEV do 2026-0313. EPSS 0.895, 100th percentile. Chained with CVE 2024-42009 to deploy vShell and Square Shell. Source: The Hacker News. Microsoft Security Update Guide CVS CVE 2026-8932. Incomplete MTLS config matching and connection reuse. EPSS 0.1, 3rd percentile. CVE 2026-8286. Wrong startles connection reuse. EPSS 0.2, 9th percentile. CVE 2026-8926. Password leak with netrc and user in URL. EPSS 0.2, 9th percentile. CVE 2026-55952. TLS1. 3 server DOS via malformed client hello pre-shared key extension. EPSS 0.5, 37th percentile. CVE 2026-54891. Plaintext application data injected during TLS handshake delivered to client application post handshake in SSL. EPSS 0.2, 6th percentile. CVE 2026-9545. Exposing HTTP/3 early data. EPSS 0.1, 3rd percentile. CVE 2026-8458, wrong reuse for different services. EPSS 0.2, 11th percentile. CVE 2026-8924, trailing domain supercookie. EPSS 0.2, 12th percentile. CVE 2026-10536, HTTP/2 stream dependency tree UAF. EPSS 0.2, 11th percentile. CVE 2026-9080, UAF after pause in socket callback. EPSS 0.2, 11th percentile. CVE 2026-54886, SSH SFTP server DOS via extended channel data infinite loop. EPSS 0.3, 27th percentile. CVE 2026-12480, arbitrary HDF 5-file read via virtual dataset bypass in Kira's team/Kira's. EPSS 0.1, 3rd percentile. CVE 2026-14647, Onx old. CC conv pool shape inference offset 19 out of bounds. EPSS 0.3, 17th percentile. Sources, MSRC Security Update Guide. Beyond Trust Additional Vulnerabilities, CVE 2026-40140, CVSS 8.7. Pre-authentication DOS and network communication, subsystem, from insufficient validation of client input. CVE 2026-40141, CVSS 8.5. Insufficient validation of user input in web application component, allowing authenticated attackers with limited privileges to access unintended resources beyond authorization scope. Source: The Hacker News. Next section, Trends and Context. 3 distinct themes emerge today. First, the Jade Puffer autonomous LLM ransomware marks a fundamental shift in attack economics where operational expertise is replaced by AI agent capability at minimal cost. Second, active exploitation continues to compress dramatically, with Citrix NetScaler attacks beginning within 24 hours of disclosure and Guidia probing starting 13 days post-disclosure. Third, China Nexus APT activity shows deliberate supply chain targeting across multiple vectors. University research departments via Roundcube exploits, Indian tax professionals via fake government utilities, open-source developers via compromised maintainer accounts, and Israeli IT providers via RMM tool abuse. The convergence of AI-driven attacks, compressed exploitation timelines, and sophisticated supply chain campaigns indicates defenders must prioritize patching velocity, supply chain verification, and behavioral detection over signature-based controls. That concludes today's Cyber Threat Brief. From Carolina Clear Tech, stay patched, stay vigilant.